Hey gang, this is Andy over at Falco Canine Academy. I'm here on a very rainy Tuesday. I hear my voice in another room and it's really bizarre. I'm not sure why. Maybe I think Alexa has picked up my, has connected to one of my phones. Very strange. And so this is a very rainy day in Brea, California here. And so I just wanted to come on and talk a little bit about a couple things. As I was sitting there listening to the rain and thinking about, some of the things we're going to be talking about here 2018, one of those things is going to be in regard to dog trainers. And I know that if you watched any of our other videos, we mentioned this probably a couple times a broadcast, and that one of the directions I want to go to is help dog trainers become a little bit more successful, not only in the sense of making a higher income, but in the sense of being more successful in training humans and their dogs and creating a better relationship and saving dogs from having to be euthanized and maybe having to change homes or being sent back to the rescue or shelter, that kind of thing. And just simply having a dog that you can take out for a walk. I think that's really probably the most important thing. So many times people get dogs thinking they're going to do all this wonderful stuff with them, and then the dog ends up staying in the backyard and doesn't get out and about and walking around and become the companion that they were looking for when they first thought about getting a dog, right? So those are one of the things that I want to help trainers do, is to be more successful in doing that. I've partnered up with Cameron Thompson over at Home to Canine, and she is fantastic. Again, we do a podcast, which right now we're having a little bit of an issue with the recording because she's down in San Diego County, I'm up here in Orange County, and we have to do them over Skype, and the levels are not correct. And so, well, I was going to say this, but I'm guessing that most people don't care, but they can actually hear Cameron, and it's hard to hear me, which I'm sure is fine for most of you. But considering that it's a team effort, I think that we should probably be able to hear both of us. But again, she's far more articulate than I am, and it comes up with way better words when we're talking on the podcast. I'm over here. Fortunately, she's not in the same room because she wouldn't see me looking up the word she's using and go, "What does that mean?" I have no idea what that means. And so we're going to be doing a lot more in training. One thing that comes up, and my gain seems to be so loud right now. If I'm overpowering you, I'm so sorry. But the gain on this mic sometimes spikes up for some reason, and it could just be me. My voice is kind of one of those voices. I've realized when I'm interviewing people that the mic at the same distance from my mouth, it sounds like it's 20 feet away from somebody else's. So I have apparently a very strong vocal presence, apparently. All right, so the other thing that I want to talk about, we're going to talk about both these things. A subject matter in regard to training human beings, that's going to be second. But first, I want to talk about obedience in relationship to detection dogs. And again, I know this comes up quite often, and I get on a soapbox about it, but it just never seems to go away. And so I think maybe I just need to continue to harp on this aspect that really is strange, because it doesn't matter where I go. It just seems to be a thing that dog handlers, detection dog handlers have been told this lie that detection dogs should not have any obedience. A dog came to me the other day, and we're busy training them, and they're doing fantastic, right? Way better than I even thought about in the beginning. Now, the dog knows the odor of that they're looking for, and so that was good, except for they were told a whole bunch of things that just I don't quite understand. Let me go to my comments because I keep forgetting to do that. Feel free to please comment. I can't bring up your comments because I'm not using BeLive. I'm using something called Switcher Studio, which is going to allow me to switch cameras here in just a moment, which you're going to see. And I'm using my iPhones as cameras. And so if you want to learn more about that, go to the Facebook Live TV show, which I just got done producing a show over there. But I can show you how to do all this stuff. That's why my iPad is way up here on my face. But in relationship to obedience and detection dogs and this phony baloney information that's continually handed down, and it comes from laziness. I know for sure that it comes from laziness, and then secondarily it comes from trainers who don't select the right dog, because anything that they do to the dog in relationship to obedience shuts the dog down because they picked the wrong dog. The dog really shouldn't be doing the job. It's BS. If you select the right dog, the obedience makes you and the dog a better team. It creates a better bond between the two of you. It makes you better if you do obedience correctly. Now, I guess there's the third thing to that, and that is if you're doing obedience wrong, of course it's going to affect detection dog work. It's going to affect patrol dog work. It's going to affect your relationship with your dog. It's horrible. And I've told the story 100 times, I know, and I'm sorry. But I remember seeing police officers with their dogs, and I would be watching them, and I'd say, I noticed that you haven't pet your dog in the last hour, 2 hours. Do you ever pet your dog? He goes, no. He knows what he's doing right when I'm not beating him. Oh, all right. I've known parents like you, or fathers like you, that the reward is not being hit. The reward is not being corrected, right? That when I feed you at the end of the day, that's how you know you did a good job, right? Do dogs nothing in operant conditioning or classical conditioning, or even in what I'm going to teach you, the social learning theory that I'm going to teach you or talk about, which you may or may not already know, says that if I don't beat you, that means you did good. Right? I mean, there's an aspect of a correction is meaningful in teaching a dog when not to do something, or a human not to do something, that some type of consequence to your behavior is powerful. But you also need to have a reward, right? So you have both ends of the spectrum. You got consequence, and you got positive consequences and negative negative consequences, and you need to have those in your life. And so back to this thought that obedience harms your work as a detection dog handler is hogwash, if not BS, which I do say once in a while out loud, but it's BS. If you have shown to your dog that you need to be looked at as a respected leader, and that everything comes through you, permission to go in and out of a door, permission to go in and out of a crate, permission to eat their food, to sit on the floor at your feet, not to such a great extent that they're looking to you for breathing. No, for those simple things that you can control and that make sense to control. If when you're on your walk, that you don't want your dog to pull on the leash, which should be the case, your dog should walk with you as the leader, not acting aggressive towards people that are approaching you, not acting aggressive towards dogs that are approaching you, or biting and chasing children that are on their skateboards or their scooters, whatever it is, that the dog needs to be obedient to you. The dog that understands that they can't do those things, is a much better companion, and a much better working employee of yours, because they understand that there's rules and consequences to bad behavior, and when they do the right thing and do the job properly, then there's really, really cool rewards, really good rewards, and they know they're going to get that from you. If you have good obedience and you're doing it right, the dog knows when they do the right thing, there's nothing better, that it pleases you, that you even love them even more. I mean, you can love them, what's the word? You can love them with no strings attached. Well, there's another word for it. What's the word? Not independently. Crap. So I wish somebody was watching right now, because you could write it in there and tell me what that word. Without rules, whatever. You're going to love them no matter what. It's like your kids, right? I'm going to love my children no matter what. No matter what it is they do, to a certain extent, no matter what they do, I am going to love them. However, I'm also going to love them enough to let them know that you cannot do anything you want, anytime you want, to anybody you want, no matter what, right? That there's rules and boundaries, and there's proper behavior. There's no watching television on their phone or their iPad or their laptop at the dinner table. Right? We don't even allow them in restaurants, right? My children know that those things aren't allowed in restaurants. That's just the rule. That's what they're not allowed to do, right? And they know that, right? They don't hate me because that's the rule. They just understand that that's the rule, and that I respect Dad enough, and I respect them enough for them to know that it's better if we talk and have a relationship at these places at the appropriate time. When we're sitting at a dinner table, it's much better to have a discussion or talk to each other and engage with each other and say, hey, what did you do this week? Unconditional. Yes, that's the word. Unconditional love. Thank you so much, Chris. Oh my gosh. Oh, that was going to drive me crazy. Unconditional love. That I will love you no matter what. However, that those rules and boundaries and those things that are so important to us to make a connection as a family are my rule. And that's how we're going to live. So that they can go on and grow up and carry on those same rules with their children, with their employees, right? If I'm calling a meeting, with my staff, and we're going to be sitting at a round table and talking, if their parents have raised them in the sense that when we are sitting in a group environment where we are to be communicating, or to where we're going to be sharing ideas and that kind of stuff, you are not to be on your phone. Is the person who was raised with the rule and the boundary of not having those things at dinner tables, at lunch tables, at breakfast tables, whatever that is, or in certain periods of time during the day when you're together as a family, is the person that was raised that way going to have a better time of understanding that and just doing that automatically than the person who was not raised that way? Yes, of course. And that's where that becomes very powerful. That's where obedience in the human being or the child begins to pay off in the long run. And so the obedience that we give in our dogs just on a daily basis, hey, wait and sit there and wait for me to put the bowl down. Do not jump on me. Do not paw at my dog at the dog bowl. Do not hit the container where I keep the dog food with your nose and jump all over it while I'm trying to dish it out. None of that is allowed, right? You are to sit and wait while I dish it out, no matter where it could be right in front of you. Your job is to sit and wait while I dish it out, put it in the bowl, and set it down, and stand up, and then wait for you to look at me in the eye, and then I'll give you the permission. Those are the rules and the boundaries, and if you do that, is that better than the other thing? Absolutely. Is that going to help you if you have a detection dog who is searching a house and they see a bowl of food and you tell them no when you see them look at it like they're going to go to it? Is the dog going to be more reactive to you when you say no and continue on the path of actually doing their job than the dog who's been allowed to molest you while you're feeding them? Absolutely. It goes without saying. You got to see the connection between those two things. So the connection, what I'm trying to teach you and talk to you about is that obedience overall makes you more effective as a detection dog, because no matter if it's at home on your daily basis or actually in the work of doing detection work, it's all the same. It all applies, and it makes you a much better team, right? Your dog is going to be quicker to listen to you because you have that in their head that you require and demand obedience in regard to rules and boundaries and that kind of thing. It is just that much better. Now, in how you do it, that's the next thing, right? In my poor handlers who didn't have a relationship with their dog, that they felt that just simply not punishing the dog was reward enough, the relationship is lost. I know many of them, and I knew their problems in the field, that when the dog was asked to do certain things, the dog completely blew them off because the dog didn't understand, right? The dog didn't understand that they needed to have obedience. It was just simply in these scenarios that they were doing that they didn't get beaten for doing the wrong thing. It didn't mean that meant that out in the field. And so these dogs that they thought that they had control over, they had little or no control in other circumstances, because the overall obedience and respect and love that was supposed to be created through that teaching was not applied in a way that the dog understood outside of certain circumstances at the place that we are training. And so that is why it needs to be overall, it needs to happen all the time. All right. So, and then how you do it needs to be respectful of the dog, and petting your dog once in a while, giving them a treat once in a while, giving them their toy once in a while is really a really good thing. Right. And then understanding how much of a correction you need. Sometimes it's just verbal, telling them no. Sometimes it's simply just withholding something from them. Sometimes it's just not letting them go forward in the direction they want to go. That is a correction. That is holding back something that they want, right? They want to move forward, and holding them back is a consequence of not giving you a good heel. And so that's the consequence. They can't move. I'm not always, whenever I say correction, I'm not saying that it's always a pinch collar correction or a choke chain correction or whatever kind of correction that's out there for your dog on a martingale or something like that. I'm not always talking about that, although that is one of the ways of getting a correction. It could be one of those other things. All right. So using those corrections, using those consequences, negative consequences, in a way that the dog clearly understands that was because they did X, Y, or Z, and that it makes sense to them and isn't so painful that they lose the concept, then you are on the right track. All right. So making sure that is also understood. Giving too much reward too often is also bad, because then the dog doesn't learn to appreciate their rewards. You got to make sure and vary the times you give them reward, that you don't always give them reward for everything they do that's positive. That sometimes it just happens and then you move on, right? Sometimes it just happens and you move on, and then you go, you know what, I'm going to give you something for that because that was actually better than the other two times, right? Or, it's just time for you to give reward to reinforce whatever you give. So you don't want to get a reward all the time either, right? And so understanding those concepts are going to be really, really important. So obedience, no, 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 no. It is not bad for detection work. It's not bad for patrol work. It's not bad for search and rescue. It's not bad for anything. Obedience is a key to success in everything. And don't let anybody tell you anything different. All right, just bad information. And I'm not sure where that even comes from. All right, I think I went way too long with all that stuff. But Chris, thank you for answering my question. Unconditional love is what I was looking for. You won the big prize. The prize is a high five into the camera. And so I wish I had something more to give you. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about in regard for trainers, and trainers understand. And this could actually go for Chris when you're teaching your customers about your bed bug detection dog service, in that you want them to become raving fans of yours. And if you can teach somebody in a way that they understand and can comprehend, and then follow through and do whatever it is you're teaching them, the more opportunity you have for them to become a raving fan, because they begin to understand what it is that you are trying to teach them, because you're more effective at teaching them. So understanding these concepts are going to be really important. Now I'm going to only touch on to a very minor part, just a very minor part of it. And so it's just to kind of get you started, because I'm going to be posting most of this in the Train the Dog Trainer Facebook page. Right now, I do realize I'm in the Falco Canine Academy Facebook page, but I'm going to be using more of the trainer stuff and begin to moving more of that information when it's going to be coming down to mostly specific for dog trainers. I'm going to be doing that from the Train the Dog Trainer Facebook page, which if you're interested in that, you're going to want to make sure and like and be a part of and follow. All right. So let's talk about this social learning theory. Social learning theory was brought to us by Albert Bandura, and he was a professor back in 1961 and 63. He did these tests called the Bobo Doll test. I brought this up in one of the recent Facebook Lives that I did not too long ago, but I'm going to be talking more specifically about this, again, in more detail in the Train the Dog Trainer. But Albert Bandura is the one who actually developed this concept or this theory. And he believed that people learn behaviors through the observation of others, then impersonate what they have observed. And where this really became an issue is what children are learning by watching television or playing violent games, and how it affects them, and what it is what they go on to do, and how their personalities are affected. It goes into greater detail. There's more stuff that you need to know about that aspect of it. But the one concept that I'm going to bring out a little bit and talk about a little bit more for all of you that are teaching somebody how to do something is that you need to understand that there's 4 cognitive behavioral processes. 4 cognitive behavioral processes that really need to be understood, because if you don't have these 4, then I would say, based on what I'm learning, is that it's impossible to learn, maintain, and then do based on something that you're taught. Right? Because there is an aspect that you can learn something but not know how to do it. Right? But you can learn something and also do it. And that's what we want. We want somebody to learn it and then do it. All right, so if we're dog trainers and we're training people how to work with their dog and train a behavior and maintain a behavior, we want to not only teach them about it and teach them how to do it, we want them then to be able to do it. And we need to speak to them in a way that allows them to do it. Right? So understanding that. There's so many dog trainers out there that train as if the pet dog owner wants to be a dog trainer. And that's a huge mistake. Most pet dog trainers don't want to be dog trainers. They just want their dog to stop doing something that they don't like. Or they just want their dog to do something that they do like, right? Like heel when they walk. Or come back when they call it, right? And so the aspect that we think that we can teach them the way we would a dog trainer is wrong, because that's not who we're training when we're talking about pet dog owners. We're teaching pet dog owners who are people who don't want to be dog trainers. They just want their dog to do something different, either positive or negative. All right? And so understanding cognitive behavioral processes is going to be key to that. This social learning theory is super important, because it's going to be something that's going to help you understand how people learn. All right. So the first one is attention. Now, attention is important, obviously, because it seems obvious that somebody would have to be paying attention to me as a dog trainer in order to hear what I'm saying, see what I'm saying, that kind of stuff. But we can lose people's attention really quickly. If you're in a group training environment, and I have taught my trainers this often, is that you have a line of people, 10 to 15 people, and for whatever reason, you begin to focus on the first 2 or 3 people, or maybe even the middle. Right? If it's a big group and they're spread out pretty widely, if you're focused, whatever, in your stance, and you're focused on just a small group of those people, 2 or 3 people, you're going to lose the attention of the rest of the people that are down the line. If you're not talking loud enough so the people on the ends can hear you, or if you move to one end, you're going to lose more than half of your crowd, because they're spread out so wide that if you're talking softly, they're simply not going to hear you. Now, they're going to be looking at you and watch your lips move, but pretty soon you're going to see them kind of going, no, I can't hear them. Yeah, I can't hear them. And they do this, and they go, oh, my phone, and they pull out their phone, and you got to get their attention, right? So if you don't have their attention, you're going to lose them. And I know that there's been many times when I'm simply even talking to people, mostly as a subordinate. I know as a police officer, as a subordinate talking to a sergeant, lieutenant, or captain, that their attention span is very short. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it was me. I don't know. But whenever I was one-on-one with them in the watch commander's office or in their office trying to explain something that needed to be done, if I didn't grab their attention and get them to pay attention to me through some means, then they weren't listening to a word that I said. All right. And they were very quick to get onto their, move their hands onto their computer keyboard and begin to look at their screen as I was talking, and then I knew they weren't listening to a word I said. So you have to understand that you have to have people's attention. You need to look in their eye. If you lose their attention, then you need to do something to get their attention, whether it is tell them to stop, hey, you need to pay attention. Get off their phone. Put your phone away, right? That's what I do with my kids, right? You tell them, hey, stop that. Look at me in the eye. Look me in the eye, right? And so at least you have the eye contact going for you. It doesn't necessarily mean they're listening to you, but at least you get that part of it, get their eyes off of the device and get them on you. So you need to have their attention. That's super important. All right. The next thing is you need to have retention. Retention also is in other things where you're going to see this theory is it's going to be listed as memory. And it's the same thing. The retention and memory. How do we get people to hold on to the memory and retain what it is that we are teaching them? And one of the things I do, and I just did it, is I use other things people can relate to. So in relationship to dog training, I come to the human aspect and to raising children and say, do you have children? Yes. Okay. Do you know how when you do the blah, 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 and your child responds or doesn't respond? Yes. Okay. In relationship to the dog, you need to do the same thing. They go, oh, okay, I get it now, right? So you're going to use things that they can understand. You're going to use some type of scenario or type of situation that they can relate to, either with their spouse, their boyfriend, girlfriend, their children, maybe an employee or an employer, and use one of those stories that you can use to help them understand what it is that they're doing with their dog. Because there's almost everything that we do with dogs can be related to something in a personal relationship. In some way or manner. And that's one of the most common, right? Or you can even use something else. If you can come up with something that makes sense, then you want to use those things to help people retain what it is you're saying. So the memory, the retention is really, really important. Motor reproduction. So motor reproduction is really key, especially into relationship to dogs, and that is that they need to now do it with their hands, or do it with their feet, or do it with their body language, or do it with their voice, and watch the dog and pay attention to what their dog is telling them. And so this motor reproduction, after observing the model, which would be you, I'm not a model, but the model is the person who's modeling the behavior, so that you're going to do it in a way that the watcher can and must imitate. They can and must imitate. And that's why you need to understand the person that you're training, right? So you need to understand that person that they're training and whether they have limitations, right? Maybe they have an injured back. Maybe I'm 195 pounds, sometimes 200. Depends what shirt I'm wearing. So it depends on what I'm wearing, how much I weigh. So if, let's say I'm 190 pounds. Let's just say that. And the person you're teaching is 90 pounds. Are they going to be able to do the same things that you do? Probably not. So you need to figure out what it is that you can demonstrate that they can do with their dog, right? You need to demonstrate what it is that they can do with their dog, and so that they can model you, right? If I'm going to pick up a 90-pound dog and do something, what you do in police work sometimes, you pick up your 90 to 120-pound dog and you got to put him in an attic, right? Like, oh, you just pick up your dog, you throw him in the attic. And now you have your 125-pound police officer, which I've had, and you say, okay, pick up your 100-pound dog and put him in the attic. They're going to go, no. I can't do that. And so you need to find something that they can actually do and they can model that. So you got to make sure whatever it is you model, the human being can do so that you can get this motor reproduction. Motor reproduction is going to be based on what it is that they can do. You need to model the thing that they can do, right? And make it easy for them to model it. If you don't have that, if you don't have their attention, you don't have the ability to do something in a way that they can retain it. And then if they can't reproduce it, you're already dead. You're not even getting to step 4. So step 4 is going to be reinforcement. So how is it that you're going to get this person to get some reinforcement from what it is you're teaching them? Sorry, I keep going out of the camera here because I keep switching. I need to have a producer. I need a second person in here to hit my buttons. All right, so reinforcement. So now you've got their attention, right? You've gave them a way to retain the information. You've showed them how to do it, and you've done it in a manner that they can actually replicate it and do it. So you need some type of reinforcement so they can continue on and do it again. And what is going to be the reinforcement? In dog training, it's going to be the dog actually responding, right? So if they've had trouble getting their dog to sit, and they can see that you can get the dog to sit by doing the things that you've told them, and you've showed them, and you give them a way that they can do it, the reinforcement for them, not the dog, the reinforcement for them is going to be the fact that the dog actually does it and the dog sits. So I'm going to take my team that I'm training right now for bed bug detection, and so I, as a part of this, and this has kind of become natural, that this is kind of how I operate, is that I take their dog from them, I show them the things, right, and they often go, oh my God, I've been trying to get him to do that all week or all month or since we got him. The dog has never done that. How did you get him to do that? Right? And so, well, that's how you do it. And then you give them the leash and the dog does it. Then let's say that's releasing the ball, which this dog didn't like to do. I give them the leash. I say, tell the dog to do it. The dog does it. The dog drops it. They go, oh my God, that's their reinforcement. That's the human's reinforcement that, oh shoot, okay, I can do this. Okay, it is possible. Okay, this dog isn't as dumb as I thought. Oh, okay, this dog actually does respect me on some level, at least for now, because they're maybe in my presence, because they know that if they don't do it for them, then I'm going to take the leash. There's possibly that also. But whatever that is, the reinforcement is that you have taught them how to do it, and the reinforcement is that it actually worked. And the dog stopped doing it. The reinforcement, we see it all the time in our group dog training, is that we bring a dog up to another dog who's normally aggressive, and now the dog isn't aggressive. That is a great way of reinforcing what it is we've taught them, and now the human gets the reinforcement by their dog not doing what it is that it used to do, and actually acts good, and looks at them and with a loving look on their face. Look, I didn't attack that dog, and it's because I love you, and because I respect you. That felt really funny when I just said that. And then what they do is they reinforce the dog, and they're more happy to reinforce the dog. And now the reinforcement that they give the dog is more meaningful, because now the human feels great. The human goes, oh my God. Now their voice is higher pitched. It's more of in a friendly manner. It's not like, oh, that stupid dog, right? That's what the dog's used to hearing. The dog's going to go, oh, wait a minute. They talk nicely to me. Oh, wait a minute. They look happy, right? And so now the reinforcement now that they give their dog is even better, because now they've been reinforced by the dog's good behavior. Woo! That is fantastic. This is good stuff. I love this stuff, and nobody's commenting other than Chris telling me unconditional. Really, really good stuff. So once you learn these things as a dog trainer, attention, retention, motor reproduction, and reinforcement, and apply it to what it is you do on a daily basis with your dog training clients, and understand that you're not training them to be dog trainers necessarily. You're training them to be a pet dog owner of their dog, to get good behavior, to build a relationship between the two of them. And the way you're going to do that is by applying these 4 things, so it becomes easier for them to live with their dog. All right? So that's all I got for you. I hope that was worthwhile for your 30 minutes of spending your time with me, allowing me to figure out these cameras here so that it actually works properly. Again, one of these days I'll get a second party here that's going to actually control all this stuff for me. Chris, thank you for joining me, and whoever else is watching. I do see that other people are watching. They're just not commenting, and that's fine. They might be driving in the rain, and I don't want you commenting when you're driving in the rain anyway. But again, I hope this has been good for you. Again, as we go more and do more dog training stuff, and if a Facebook Live is going to be more related to dog training, I'm going to start doing that more in the Train the Dog Trainer Facebook page. So if you're interested, wow, that was weird. If you're interested in learning more about being an effective dog trainer, then you're going to definitely want to be on our Train the Dog Trainer page. Make sure and like and follow that page. That way you can get notified whenever it is we're on there. And then when I do a Facebook Live, you're going to want to you're going to want to subscribe when that opportunity comes. The subscribe button comes up when you first start watching that Facebook Live. You'll see it on there and you just hit that. And then you'll get notifications when I go live on Facebook. All right, there you go. That's it for me, and I will talk to you later. Take care. Bye.